Hello, my name is Ruth Goldsmith. I'm the Communications Manager at KAC Communications. I'm joined today by Dr. Marewa Glover. Dr. Glover is Director of the Independent Centre of Research Excellence, Indigenous Sovereignty and Smoking, which is based in Auckland, New Zealand, but which focuses on tobacco use among all Indigenous people around the world. Many of you will know her name from her position as Tobacco Section Editor for the International Harm Reduction Journal, from previous Global Forum on Nicotine appearances, and her INCO Professional Advocate of the Year award in 2018. Her dedication to reducing tobacco smoking harm over 25 years was recognised this year when she was one of 3 finalists for the prestigious New Zealander of the Year award, for which many congratulations, Marewa. So thank you very much for joining me. It's nice to talk to you. I was going to open by asking you to just give us a taster, really, for what will be in your presentation at this year's Global Forum on Nicotine.
I'm going to be talking about nicotine use in pregnancy, and a colleague of mine and I have done a systematic review in preparation for the talk, so we can look at where we're up to, where's all the evidence on this, using nicotine while pregnant. It's been very interesting, I must say, and quite shocking. The state of the science is really abysmal, I have to say. So we found some papers that fit our criteria, and I will be giving a summary of what we found from those. But we also found many other papers that said they talk about nicotine use in pregnancy, or the ill effects of using nicotine. And we have this other pile of papers that we just couldn't include because they were scientifically poor. So it raises a whole other issue, and I think it's right across the tobacco harm reduction debate.
Yeah.
The corruption of science, the use of science and exploitation of scientific method to push an ideology, to push the prohibitionist view. And I know it's not just in tobacco control that this is happening, and it's in other realms, obesity and many other topics. So, but really to see how poorly some studies, how they're written, the lack of scientific method in the papers, it's a wonder they even were published in the first place. And it just points to, and I know many people are already aware that whole publishing institution is broken down, and getting papers reviewed, it's getting more and more difficult, and there are just a lot of journals out there that don't care about quality at all. They'll publish anything.
Sure. Well, it's really interesting, and is a theme that is popping up at various, as you say, across other conversations around GFN. So I'm sure it will be one that we will be discussing. But I'm looking forward also to the content of the presentation, as well as the sort of secondary discussion. That sounds very interesting. Just could you give us maybe a picture of where tobacco harm reduction is at currently in New Zealand, just as a kind of baseline introduction for those of us who might not be familiar with the scene there?
We're doing really well and moving towards legislative change. So hopefully that's going to happen later on this year. The government will be putting out draft legislation, and everyone here in New Zealand will be able to put in submissions about what should be in that legislation. We do still have some issues that are being debated, and some strong lobbying from the prohibitionist end to ban vaping in more and more places, to restrict where you can buy vaping products, and potentially to undermine the effectiveness. There's a talk now of banning flavours, and these are not new topics for what's happening overseas, and where I'm glad that our situation isn't that bad. There's also potentially the talk now of restricting the amount of nicotine, and that wasn't on the table before. So it's looking good. There are a few concerning things, and of course, given that we're going to be doing an amendment to the Smoke-Free Environments Act, I think there's also some lobbying going on to slip in other changes, such as banning smoking in cars, banning smoking and vaping in cars when people under 18 are in the car.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to ask you about in a little bit more detail, really, because that's not something I've come across before, the ban on smoking and vaping in a vehicle where there is an under 18 present. Could you tell us a little bit about how that proposal how has it been met in New Zealand, and has it come into law yet?
No, it hasn't. It's going to be put on the table later this year as well. So there'll be a piece of legislation either specifically around that or as part of the smoke-free amendments that will be being considered. So basically, we have the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control that provided kind of a huge list of activities and strategies that tobacco control around the world could implement. And at the time of the establishment of the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, New Zealand was already leading in terms of what we had done, in terms of the Smoke-Free Environments Act that we had. So here, tobacco control as a sector have another huge long list of things, strategies, legislation, regulation that could be pushed and could be implemented. So it's kind of like there's a shopping list, and lobbyists behind that shopping list just keep pushing for everything on the list.
More and more, right?
More and more and more, regardless of the evidence, regardless of whether it's needed. It's just, this is what's on the shopping list, this is what we're going to go for.
Sure.
And that has always been there, the one banning smoking in cars. The other thing that happens, of course, is that a country somewhere does it, and then other countries are pressured to do it as well.
Sure.
So as soon as one country does something extreme or different, then other tobacco control sectors in other countries go, well, here's something else we can push. The only evidence they put forward usually is, well, Australia did it, so we should as well.
And the addition of vaping into that mix is, potentially problematic, really.
I think it's in line with the fact that when the amendments go through, it's going to have that vaping will be banned everywhere where smoking is banned.
Yeah.
So for some people in the countries where you are, that might not sound that bad, but in New Zealand and Australia, we have advanced smoke-free environment legislation. So there are many, many places already where you cannot smoke legally, and that's always being pushed. So the tobacco control sector is constantly trying to move that boundary out. It's being proposed here that all land under the umbrella of the Department of Conservation, so huge amounts of tracts of land, bush, regional parks, that should be made smoke-free, that town centres should be made smoke-free, and even now it's being proposed, it's people's own home environments, so the car and their own home. So Housing New Zealand, that is the biggest provider of rental accommodation in New Zealand, so a government-owned agency, they're being constantly lobbied to ban smoking in all Housing New Zealand properties, in not just the house, the whole property. And so banning vaping as well, in saying we're going to ban vaping wherever smoking is banned, actually this is a real concern.
Sure.
Because it could be like, well, that's everywhere, and then we're back to having the same problem of, if people can't vape, that's going to undermine the effectiveness of vaping as an alternative to smoking, etc.
Sure. I was interested in your argument that the ban on smoking and vaping in cars with under 18s would disproportionately affect the Maori community. Could you tell us a little bit about why that is?
Well, we have the highest smoking rates, so it's sitting at around 35% on the last survey, but that's not statistically different from the previous year, so it's just plateaued out at the moment. It's always been going down very, very slowly anyway, from 50% when I first started over 25 years ago. So sitting at around 35%, much higher among Māori women. We have the highest smoking rates, especially among 18 to 24-year-old women, and that flows on into pregnancy. So we have the highest rates of smoking among our young Māori pregnant.
Okay.
We're Māori, being the indigenous people and being a colonised country and still sort of trying to come out from underneath that trauma, the Māori are overrepresented among the lower socioeconomic and many other negative health statistics.
Yeah.
So it's not just Māori that will be hurt by some of these policies, that they're made for kind of the general population. There's no thought given at all. Well, actually, that's not true. We do argue about it. There's a lot of thought given to it, but at the end of the day, people go, well, we don't care. We just don't care about the negative effect it's going to have on a small section of the population, or, well, those, dirty lower class anyway. So the whole thing about the class war is happening. It's also racially discriminates against groups if they are overrepresented, and particularly here, it's not just about being lower socioeconomic. For Māori, we've had very, very high smoking rates for 150 years. So there's a historical situation, and that's just pushed aside. And anyway, who cares about them, the poor or Māori? And this comes back to what we've done for 35 years in terms of denormalizing smoking and framing smokers as responsible for their own behavior, their own ill health, and that they've brought this upon themselves. The whole stigmatization of people who smoke as dirty, as bad parents, and this judgmental attitude that now exists. It's just in many, many countries, there's just no compassion at all. So the whole public health approach of, we will implement the policy that will have the most effect for the most people, is what is predominant. And the minority groups, or groups that will be particularly negatively impacted by a particular policy or piece of legislation, they just don't figure. They
fall by the wayside. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and
that's really interesting.
It's a struggle to get any. The struggle is up against this total lack of compassion for people who smoke, and it's not just a lack of compassion now. This is state-sanctioned hatred of a group of people, and it's almost like society needs somebody to kick. They need somebody that they can, cast looks at and put down. And in our increasingly, we have a lot of let's be lovely, everybody belongs, and we have laws against racial discrimination. We have laws against discriminating against LGBT. We have laws against discrimination based on religion. And well, there's no, who are you allowed to hate?
Scapegoats.
And unfortunately, public health and this was done quite deliberately, have created this, here we are, you can have this group. If we get society to have no compassion for this group, to feel so, it's really pretty bad, then we can do anything we want to them.
Yeah.
Because society doesn't care.
Yeah.
They're going to support it. So you can go out in New Zealand, you can say, we want to, something really bad, let's fine every smoker $100 every time you see them smoking or something, or go into their homes, and you can easily go around and do a survey and get 97% support.
Yeah.
But that's not because, it's not because people have thought deeply about the issue. It's just, well, everyone hates them, of course.
Yeah.
Why would you? It's just, it's a real issue.
Yeah, it's the final scapegoat. Yeah, substance use and smoking, the final hurdles. Yeah.
Well, it's happening in other drug users have had this for many, many years, decades. The real concern for me is that there's a lack of ethics in public health, and that's only just a new sector, that's a new discipline of public health ethics, and in New Zealand there just isn't any. That's
really interesting, and I think public health is going to be another hot topic at the Global Forum on Nicotine this year. My final question, Marewa, is to say, what are you most looking forward to at this year's conference?
GFN is great for meeting consumers. I think that's the most important thing about GFN for me, and I have learned so much from the consumers that attend and from listening to them. And there's real challenge. It's not like other conferences that I went to for many, many years. They're more like they're a real bubble, and it's lots of rah, you're on the side of right, and keep going, keep smashing the smokers type of event. GFN is far more about understanding the issues, and it goes deeper, because the issue isn't just, are these products less harmful, and are they helping people quit smoking? It's not just that, about these other things I've been mentioning, about the lack of ethics in public health, about the misinformation that scientists are deliberately misleading the public and lying to them. And so we're actually dealing with really fundamental problems that society worldwide are up against,
grappling with
other scientists. So it's that more sort of nitty-gritty conversations, discussions, learning more about how quickly the technology is advancing. Every GFN, it's just leapt, to a whole new realm, and I don't know how I would keep up with that fast-moving sector if I didn't go to GFN.
Well, wonderful. We look forward to welcoming you back, and it's going to be my first GFN this year, so I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you very much for speaking to me, Marewa. It was fantastic. And don't forget, you can book your tickets for GFN at gfn.net.co. Thank you very much. Goodbye.